So, Boba Fett's alive. That's cool. I like it. And now we finally get to something that I've been meaning to talk about for a very long time. Canon. Let's talk about canon, shall we? So look, Boba Fett's alive, and a lot of people are saying, oh, well, we already knew that. We already knew that. Expanded universe. Canon. Look, I get the idea. I get the idea that comics and books and things help to expand our understanding of said universe. But while this is true, it's also not true. This is just for me. Maybe it's different for other people, but this is where I see canon. Canon, to me, is where the property makes its home, and that gets the final say. Case in point, Star Wars makes its home in the movies and in series that are still related to said movie or movies. Even though Star Wars started as a book, and yes it did, the book came out first. Normally, my argument would be that which came first is that which determines the canon of said material. But that's not true here. And there's a reason. Canon is where a certain thing makes its home. Therefore, in things like Halo, there may be a bunch of books, there may be comics, there may be anime, there may be movies. None of that matters. None of it matters. Literally none of it. Where Halo makes its home is in video games. And that is where the final say takes place. Whether a series or a book comes up with an idea, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until the actual major material makes its decision, like Star Trek. Star Trek is first and foremost canon on television, or some format thereof in movies or so on and so forth. They get the final say on what is canon, what is official. Everything else is, quote, beta. Such as, and this is the reason I was so irritated by it, the Picard series should not have been allowed to take comic books and make them official canon and feed off of that story, forcing us to go out of our way to find the established canon. That's another thing about canon. You should not have to go out of your way and search in the dark corners of the fucking universe to figure out what something is in canon. The information is either presented to you or it's not. Canon of the Hunger Games comes from the books. A representation of that canon is the movies, whether it be right or wrong. This is just an interpretation. The movies are second to the actual canon. So while you may like the movies, those that read the books are where it makes its home. That's where the Hunger Games lie. That's what makes the decision in canon. This is the way I feel about all these things, such as Power Rangers. Oftentimes when we talk about Power Rangers and we break it down and we discuss what is the canon of the situation we're looking at, we're talking about the American series. And the American canon is the Power Rangers TV show. So when a theory comes out from us about, say, the Psycho Rangers, it doesn't matter that the comics have already talked about it. The comics are just as much off-canon as our theories are off-canon, and neither one is necessarily right. They're just ideas, and until the series comes forward and says this is the reason, the canon is not established, and that's why we can theorize. That's the way I see these things. That's where I see canon. That's how I make my understandings on these things. And oftentimes when I find myself in an argument about some kind of material, I will run into these self-educated fucks. That's what I'm going to call them. Because, look, it's kind of funny how this material comes out, and then people start looking into it, and then there are people like me that really get into it and start reading books and expanded universe and all kinds of shit like that. But in the long run, what gets to make the final decision of said canon-esque material is where it makes its home. So, this would also apply to retellings of stories. If they are willing to take something that has already been done and they create a remake or a retcon, that is the way it is. That's just the way it is. This is not meant to be a huge episode. It's just a small thing to say Boba Fett is alive. And this time, he actually is alive because he's represented in the canon. And we're going to get an actual reason, I hope, as to why he is alive, and that is going to be really cool. Because all those books you read about Boba Fett coming back, they don't have any authority here. They don't. It's just the way it is. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you see canon as some other kind of idea. But for me, canon is that which started it or where it makes its home. For canon of the said characters of the Marvel Universe, we're looking at comics, not the MCU. Sorry, comics came first, it has the bigger lineage, and quite frankly, it's where those characters make their home. When the movies have died out, those characters will go back to comics, and comics will get the final say, like they always have. Maybe you see canon different. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's not. Maybe you agree with my interpretation of what we should look at as canon. And hey, whether you agree or not, that's all I really had to say here. Another fandom topic down. This is where I see canon. Later on.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.